So hi everybody, this is Colin Nelson from Hype Innovation. I'm the Director of Enterprise Innovation, and what I'm going to be focused on in this session for A New Way to Learn is how to improve efficiency by tapping into the collective intelligence of your company. A little bit about myself. For the last 18 years, I've been supporting a range of complex global organizations with their enterprise collaboration and information management challenges. I support a multinational consulting team, and I focus on the people and process considerations that help organizations to engage the collective insight of their complex communities and teams. I talk a lot about innovation and efficiency, how can we solve the big meaty challenges that organizations face on a day-to-day basis by getting more out of the employees that we already have. And what I'm going to talk about today is really how we're going to use the principle of collective intelligence to help support organizations' efficiency and cost challenges in the business. So we'll discuss a little bit about the sorts of major challenges that organizations face, the big meaty problems that day-to-day CEOs, it keeps them up at night. What is it they care about? What's pushing people towards adopting new ways of working and new approaches? I'll take you through how Hype are working with IBM, a little bit about our joint proposition, and then we'll run into some examples. So practically speaking, on the ground, what are organizations doing? What kind of value are they getting out of this kind of approach? And then we'll look at how specifically this collective intelligence principle can be applied to this wide range of business challenges, focusing in on efficiency and continuous improvement and reducing costs. And I'm aware that, of course, we're all trying to understand, okay, what does somebody who adopts this approach actually look like? What kind of entry points might they have? What kind of conversation starters may there be? So I'll give you some insights in what a typical Hype and IBM joint client typically looks like. So let's dig into these problems. So, of course, what we see across all kinds of different organizations is the two big topics are always growth and efficiency. So, of course, the rate of change that organizations are exposed to is meaning that people are feeling a little bit under pressure. There's a greater need for agility. For some organizations, their industry is under such transformation that they're in an adapt or die situation. And for others, they're simply seeking any kind of competitive advantage. The efficiency challenge never goes away. So organizations, of course, are involving people in reducing costs, continuous improvement, and in many cases, we're seeing companies supercharging that approach by using collective intelligence principles. So as new technology becomes available, new opportunities are opening up. Organizations are understanding that they need to be more agile to adapt to the range of changes that exist out there. That might be from new entrants to markets, it might be from a new competitive suite, it might be due to regulation, but there's an awful lot of change, and of course it's hard to predict the future. So organizational agility is crucial to supporting the organization's growth and helping it survive. And of course, our agility is dependent on how well we can leverage that fantastic asset that we have, our people. Of course, our people are increasingly spread all over the country and all over the globe. We're working in silos. We need to make the best out of what we have, and we need to build new teams. So people with different expertise, different professions, different experiences coming together on an ad hoc basis to support the new, exciting things that we want to do and help solve the very real problems that exist in all corners of our organization. But for the purposes of today, I want to focus on this topic of efficiency and look at how organizations are addressing that topic using collective intelligence. So there's some organizational pressure. There's disruption. There's change. For some companies, they really struggle to differentiate. In many cases, organizations are stretched to the limit. They're being asked to do more with less and do it at a higher level of quality. And this combination of pressures is forcing organizations to look for new ways of working. As we become more global enterprises, the scale and location of our businesses, of course, makes it harder for us to understand where the real expertise, the experience, and the knowledge exists. Our experts are spread globally. They find it tough to collaborate because they're in different time zones. And often we have no idea what our organization actually knows. And of course, this brings us towards knowledge management. We have no idea how to leverage the expertise that exists in every corner of our enterprise. Most of our intellectual property walks out of the door at the end of the day. And these silos mean that we reinvent the wheel, we don't share best practices, and increasingly we're just an inefficient beast because we're simply too complicated and too spread to really harness the expertise that we have. So Hype and IBM have been working together now for a few years, and I want to introduce the organization a little bit. What Hype Innovation does is to provide technology and processes for decision makers, senior leaders in organizations, to help leverage the collective intelligence of their employees, customers, and partners. The objectives that those organizations have are primarily around revenue generation and becoming more efficient. And underpinning that, what we're trying to do is to connect people across the world and empower them to support the decision-making process and the creative processes necessary to find new solutions and to solve problems. We've been 15 years in this market. We work all over the world, typically with large multinational corporations. We've got a lot of experience in a wide variety of industries, and we'll come on to industry maturity a little bit later on. We're ranked top right quadrants by all the analysts in our field, and we're recognized as being one of the world's experts in collective intelligence. So our value proposition, and linked to what IBM do, is really unique. What we have is a structured innovation management program that's key to ensuring significant and sustainable outcomes for all organizations. And what IBM have is a social network platform that helps us easily engage all the people in an organization to collaborate and contribute. So by combining IBM Connections and Hype software, two leading market solutions help organizations to achieve strategic growth targets, harnessing the wisdom of the crowd in a structured, manageable, and scalable manner. And what we have is a Hype Innovation app for IBM Connections. This essentially provides an extension to the ideation blog, enhancing and extending that functionality to embed innovation processes and crowdsourcing principles. This combination of Hype Innovation app embedded into IBM Connections helps organizations to deliver regular world-class innovation jams. Now we have best practices for harnessing collective insight built into the software and consulting support that helps adapt the approach to the things that make the organizations unique. So their culture, their structure, and their objectives will affect the way in which they tap into that collective wisdom. So what we want to do is to turn crowdsourcing into a manageable exercise, something that's systematic. It's like a utility. We can turn it on and turn it off when we need it. It's a really structured process for finding really good ideas and also getting them funded. A little bit about this Hype Innovation app embedded into Connections. Idea campaigns as the term that's used heavily across the industry, but you may recognize this from IBM jams that you've seen in the past, either mini jams or full-blown enterprise jams. An idea campaign is a way of tapping into collective insight. They're time limited, but they have a very specific process. There's a life cycle and additional social roles. Ideas can be evaluated using scorecards if you have a metric-based decision process, or you can use a head-to-head pairwise comparison so that we can compare and contrast ideas of different types. Idea evaluations are then aggregated, the scores are done automatically so you can begin to rank and prioritize the best solutions that are out there. And underpinning all of this, we have KPIs and metrics that will help us to support our decision making and the governance around all of our decision making. So embedded in this process is a set of idea evaluation tools which will help deal with any kind of circumstance, whether we're processing thousands of ideas or just 10 really high quality concepts. So we have a range of joint clients. We're working at vast scale with people like Bosch for 300,000 people. We're using the solution on-premise as well as in the cloud. And we have organizations using this integration of Connections in Hype. And these are large, complex organizations, and I think there's a lot more potential to come. So just to summarize this section, we believe by embedding this collective intelligence principle, we can make idea generation essential, predictable, and successful. We've seen from our experience that harnessing the collective intelligence of the organization is critical to supporting the change that organizations need to undergo. And it's a core process, a utility for any organization of any complexity and scale. And it doesn't just happen randomly. We can systematize this. We can focus people's energies on generating ideas where we need them. So we have predictable idea generation around the things that we care about. This changes the conversation. It helps boost employees' confidence in leadership. It helps harness creativity. It really does change the game and change lives. Real organizations are out there putting new solutions in place generated from the ideas of their employees. This is a powerful approach when harnessed collectively. So how are companies actually addressing this? Let's look at some examples. Of course, we need a platform. We need the social aspect of IBM Connections, and we need the business process provided by Hype. And what organizations are doing is they're tapping into particular groups of people, selected divisions according to the challenges that they face. So that might be a hand-picked team, a wider community, a division, a combination of divisions. They're selecting the audience based upon the type of topic that they face. And typically it's a deliberately diverse audience. We want to ensure that we get creativity and different perspectives on the challenges that we have. And in some cases, we're extending that conversation to include external parties. So our suppliers have great solutions. Our customers have ideas on how we can improve and develop our businesses. Why not include them in the process? And what we're seeing now is organizations involving these external partners, people that also have a vested interest in our success, to provide feedback, to co-create, to test and validate the sorts of changes we want to make. And out of this activity, we're going to generate ideas, sure, but also solutions, new concepts perhaps, insights on what's happening, and indeed sharing best practices so that we can improve the efficiency of the organization within a complex environment. So this idea campaign or mini jam process, if you prefer, they're only used when there's a real need for execution. They are sponsor-led. The person with the need asks the question to the company. They attract higher levels of creativity by inviting a wider range of perspectives. It isn't sufficient to just ask the same old group that we've always asked. We're going to get the same answers. The answers for our problems may exist on the other side of the world. They may be in a different time zone. Unless we're prepared to ask people, we're not going to get those solutions. Of course, sharing is a critical part of this, but actually the more challenging part and the more exciting part is getting people to build and collaborate and develop the solutions of others. So instead of just getting individual observations or individual solutions, we have more rounded solutions, more rounded capabilities that actually are starting to develop on their own without management influence. Driving collaboration is where the magic comes from. And of course, we need to decide what we're going to do with the content. Sometimes we're going to use the community itself to prioritize the best solutions to our problems. And sometimes we're going to use a hand-picked group of experts who have particular technical expertise. So we always start off with the sponsor, the person with the need, the person who's going to take ownership of the next steps. As you'd be familiar, if you've participated in a jam before, they're typically time limited. You can generally generate just as much content as you need within 2 to 3 weeks. We choose an appropriate, deliberately diverse audience to see where the insights are. Bear in mind, we're working with large, complex organizations. We often don't know where the experts really are. We don't know what people did in their previous careers. We don't know what they did in their previous roles even in the company. And we need to open up the conversation to a broader group of people. We also need to allow people to focus their energies on ideas that are likely to manifest tangible results. We need to tell them what kind of criteria are important to us. So we're going to actually give some indications of the timeline that we're working towards, what kind of impact this idea must have, what kind of regulations it might have to meet. We want to give people some focus. This is our quality lever. If we pull this lever hard, we're going to get better quality ideas and we're going to get less quantity. And if we're going to push that lever and open up the question much broader, the quality is going to be reduced, but the engagement is going to increase. And so we can use this to proactively start to increase our engagement across the organization on the topics that we care about. And yes, of course, we can use this to generate ideas, but we can also use it to identify and share best practices, find opinions, expertise, different perspectives on what we're working on. Let's dig into that deliberate diversity for a second. Any of you that have been to a brainstorming session will understand the value of having different perspectives in the conversation. But when we're sat face-to-face in a brainstorming session, we're limited in scale. We can only invite so many people. We can only fit so many people in a room. Well, what if we weren't limited by scale? What if we could invite 10,000 or 100,000 people into that conversation when we knew that they had an opinion on the topic? Well, using these approaches, not just the software, but also the process, we can now pick the right team for the conversation that we have, not just the team that we can get. So cross-functional teams that have different perspectives, that come from different divisions and maybe even come from outside, gives a really good balance between practicality and experience and creativity in different perspectives. And this is how we generate new solutions to problems that have always been there and find new ways to drive out costs from our business that perhaps we've never seen before. So why do we use these campaigns? What's the purpose? Well, they're higher quality. We're getting the sort of content that we're looking for because we're focusing people around the topics that we care about and that they care about. They're incredibly fast. You could even run a jam over just 2 or 3 days. More realistically, 2 or 3 weeks, but we don't have to wait to put people in a room. So transactionally, they're actually lower cost. We're not taking people away from their day job. They can fit this activity in and around their day-to-day work without flying into another city or even working in a different time zone. And anything that has higher quality, is faster, and is lower cost than the conventional ways is typically a good thing. And we're seeing these idea campaigns adopted by every industry you can imagine. It's a growing industry, and it's grown for 12 years, year on year. So some key success criteria. Leadership need to own the outcomes. If we're not serious about implementing a solution, changing something, changing a process, finding some costs to take out of the business, or finding something new, we shouldn't involve the community. We want to focus on delivering real outcomes. Deliberately diverse audiences will help with creativity. We want to allow teams to emerge around common interests. We don't know where the global experts are. So let's run a campaign to gather the insights, get some insights, and start to identify who these team members should be, and allow that conversation to continue. Potentially allow those teams to own that change in process, or that change in efficiency, or that new thing we want to implement. And this is where this power of having the business application of Hype embedded in a social business application of Connections is so powerful. We're going to run a wide range of campaigns on different topics. Each topic will pull in a unique crowd. And as they're participating and they're seeing other campaigns running, they may well also drop into those. And you get diverse audiences grow on diverse audiences. And of course, decision making should always be considered as part of this process. So how is it being applied to the range of business challenges we're seeing? Real business value is out there. DHL saved $250 million in the first 4 months of operating. They simply asked their employees to save cost. Now, DHL had an established cost reduction program, but what they'd never done was allow people to collaborate online. And what they found is that by bringing the collective intelligence principles to the party, they found new and interesting savings. Liberty Global, one of the largest cable companies in the world, have been running a program focused on innovation for 3 or 4 years. And then they ran just one idea cost-saving campaign and found $30 million of savings in just one campaign. It took them a matter of weeks. And $5 million of that saving came from just one idea. It was so straightforward for them, they wondered why they'd never done it before. Osram, the semiconductor manufacturer, they had an established cost-saving program in place for years. So what they did is they decided to systematizing it using collective intelligence principles and put it online. And it resulted with 34% more savings and a 17% time reduction review to evaluate ideas. And one final example I'll leave you with is from the oil and gas industry. They identified an idea worth $750 million from just one campaign. The idea itself was worth a lot less, but because it was something that could be replicated across many sites around the world, they realized that it was worth a huge amount of money for them. And again, it wasn't that hard. They just needed to focus the collective intelligence in the right place. So it's worth real money, and organizations will pay for this because they see the value. So a few different flavors of campaigns are quite interesting. We tend to think about the creative campaigns quite a lot. How do we generate some new solution or new proposition by harnessing collective intelligence? But actually problem solving is a very large use case in this space. How do we fix known issues? What about discovery campaigns, looking for rare expertise or knowledge that may exist in the corners of our organization? Or what about testing something before we do it? So suppose we're supporting a continuous improvement program and we want to put in place a new process. We could define that process and invite people to share their observations on it. What might go wrong? How can this be optimized? How can we make sure this delivers the outcome we expect before we do it? And of course, the organization that participates in that are going to feel more included, and the adoption of that new process is going to be much smoother because they feel like they've been part of the program to define it. So it can really help with change management programs as well. And of course, we can gather feedback on the sort of stuff that we're working on already. Now, when I want to take these different campaign modes and apply them to these two worlds of efficiency and innovation. So of course, in many cases, we're seeing organizations that are innovating, adopting these approaches more readily, or at least in the first instance. And then the guys who are involved with efficiency are seeing, well, we can use this. We can cost save. We can process improve. We can improve the profitability of what we're doing already. We can gather voice of the customer, reduce risk. There's a whole range of challenges that exist in that efficiency world that we can use the same tool, the same approach as our friends in the innovation space. So let's look at a very specific example of continuous improvement. Many organizations out there will have a Six Sigma process like DMAIC. For those of you not so familiar, it's a very simple 5-stage process. Define the problem, and measure what's happening, analyze it, improve where you can, and then of course control. And underneath each of these different phases are a set of activities. Now, you don't have to be a continuous improvement expert to see that actually these different tasks that exist, many of them would benefit from scale. What a lot of Lean Six Sigma people do is spend the time interviewing and gathering information and then testing within small groups new processes. Well, what if we could supercharge that? What if we could take this process and begin to add more deliberate diversity to the conversation? Suppose a process actually has 1,000 people that are impacted by it, or 10,000 people. In a manual way, it's impossible to gather insights from that amount of people. But using the Hype Innovation app embedded in Connections, we can absolutely support that conversation. And if we start to look at these topics in detail, we begin to see that some of these tasks are incredibly closely aligned to those campaign modes we just spoke about. So what's the problem? We can run a discovery campaign. Who's available to help? We can run another discovery campaign. What about gathering voice of the customer, measuring current performance, and so on and so forth? Now, it's not designed to replace this activity, but it complements it incredibly well. We can suddenly make things possible for Six Sigma experts that was never possible before by supercharging them using online tools and processes. So let's just summarize how perhaps you may see the opportunities for collective intelligence within your own organizations or within your own clients. I want to talk a little bit about the market maturity. This industry has been going for about 15 years, and the first adopters, the first industries that got excited about it were companies that primarily made things. So chemicals, auto manufacturers, in fact, the whole auto supply chain, aerospace industry, pharmaceuticals, technology. And then came a second wave. So logistics, utility companies, oil and gas, transportation sector, defense companies, consumer goods. And then we have some new adopters who are not yet there yet, but we're beginning to see the first adopters in those industries over the last few years. People in healthcare, government, media, financial services, higher education, and services in general. And some of these industries are very, very focused on growth, and others are much more passionate about efficiency. So I just want to highlight for you some of the sectors that seem to have more of an efficiency push. These are people that are mainly interested in continuous improvement, cost savings, and improving the processes that they have today. And of course, some of those first adopters are absolutely still interested in the space, but also places like healthcare, government, they're also interested in improving efficiency. And there are huge potentials in those sectors. Then we have different biotypes and different entry points. So there are people who are coming at this fresh, and I've just highlighted a couple of our clients that fit into each of these categories. So organizations that are learning, they've never tried this concept of campaigns or idea jams before. They're trying to understand how it works, but they get a sense that it has value for them somehow. Then we have organizations that have perhaps been capturing ideas through Excel or SharePoint, and they realize that their homegrown system or their homegrown approach just isn't cutting it anymore. They want to supercharge it, they want to make it as good as it can be, and they want to use better breed solutions. And people like Walmart, Harley-Davidson fit into this category. They see the value, but they think it could be even better. And then we have organizations like NASA or Boeing that have always been seemingly doing this kind of thing, or at least for the last 5 or 10 years. And maybe they're using a solution that perhaps isn't as good as it could be. Maybe it's limited. Maybe it's not delivering the kind of sustainability that they're looking for. And they want to migrate to a best-of-breed solution. So different people will have different levels of experience, but all of them are moving in this direction of using collective intelligence principles for what we're beginning to believe is going to be the next utility. So to summarize finally, organizations do need to tap into the collective intelligence of their employees to become more efficient. Harnessing what we have is a crucial way of increasing our agility. And there are a very wide range of collaboration challenges that exist across companies of all kinds of different industries and types and maturities that we can address using these principles. And what we have with IBM Connections and the Hype Innovation app is the ability to harness very large groups of people with a very specific sustainable business process that can deliver significant material results. So this partnership, I think, is perfectly placed to establish what I believe will be the next utility, collective intelligence. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to working with you.